Sometimes in life, I think we take things for granted. Like just being able to do the things that you normally do on a day in, day out basis. When that gets taken from you, it brings a perspective that you probably lacked, maybe a sense of, I don't know, a sense of gratefulness for the things that you maybe don't pay attention to on a day-to-day basis. I'm here. I'm chopping it up with y'all, doing the things that I love to do. I can't ask for anything more. This was a hell of a trade deadline. This is probably the busiest NFL trade deadline we have ever seen. And I think it kind of falls in line with the offseason being the craziest NFL offseason we've ever seen, with all the trades that we saw, Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams and all of those guys that were traded, A.J. Brown and Hollywood Brown. And so crazy offseason, even crazier trade deadline. This is some NBA, MLB type shit that we saw here today, right? So we're going to dig into all of this. I just want to put this out there first before we get the show kicked off. I want you, because I'm not going to focus on this. I'll let other people do that. I want you to focus less on the actual compensation that was gained by these teams making these moves. And I want you to focus more on the teams actually acquiring these players and the players that they acquired. I'll leave you with that as we jump into the 298th installment of the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 298th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. A lot to get to. I got to ask y'all a serious question real quick. And I need sincere answers from y'all. I actually got two questions to ask. I'll save one for tomorrow. I'll ask the Washington Commanders fans this in private during the show. I want to ask y'all this. Serious question. Do you spell the word whoa, W-H-O-A, or do you spell the word whoa, W-O-A-H? I need real answers from y'all. Because I don't trust these new breed of people coming up in the game, because academics have went to hell in a handbasket. And so everything that is done now, I take it with a grain of salt. Now, I'm very, very cautious of the new breed of spellers coming up in the game, because there's a lot of abbreviations going on for words that don't need to be abbreviated. It's a lot of people, because of Twitter and some of these different social media apps where you're just trying to get your point across quickly. You don't spell things correctly. So I tend to not trust people. The word whoa has been spelled W-H-O-A for years that way. All of a sudden now I'm seeing a lot of W-O-A-H's. That one for me phonetically makes more sense, though. When you look at the word and you think about the word whoa, W-O-A-H actually makes more sense than W-H-O-A. But I still want to ask you guys, which one makes more sense? So I'm gonna go to the comment section real quick. Oh, and this is a slam dunk. I mean, this isn't even close. Wow. I wasn't expecting that. I'm really not. I really wasn't. I mean, but it makes sense. I mean, honestly, when you look at the word phonetically, you guys know I'm very literal. And phonetically, when you look at the word whoa, it looks like it should be W-O-A-H. Okay, so So somebody, oh my God, Derek B and Big Money Sunny both said Black Rob spelled it whoa, WHOA. That's how we all spelt it back in the day. Okay. That, when Black Rob came out with whoa, that's how we spelt it. That's how everybody spelt the word whoa. So we bag it, didn't flip it like whoa, Anyway, I think WOAH is probably the best way to spell it. But I was curious. I used the word on my thumbnail, and I was kind of going back and forth as to which woe to use. I just went with the one I was comfortable with, the one that I had used for years. But I think it's time to make the switch. I'm always open-minded to doing the right thing. It's never a wrong time to do the right thing. Okay. My mind is always open. You just got to make sense. That's all. That's all I ever ask. So I'll be making that switch then. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, let's get to the comment section, man. I got a lot of stuff that I would love to just talk about with you guys, but we got a lot to get to today. So I don't have a whole ton of time to waste. So in any event, let's jump into this thing, man. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up, get you thinking a little bit. NFL trade deadline. Normally this comes and it goes without much fanfare, without much, pizzazz, sizzle, fire, Usually we talk about all of these different moves like every year. Where's Brandon Cooks going to be traded? Again, Brandon Cooks didn't get traded, right? Kareem Hunt wants out, and the Browns are asking for a 4. Who's going to offer it up? Nobody did. He's still a Cleveland Brown. Like, these are the things we're accustomed to seeing happen. All of this is meant. Cam Akers wants out of LA, and they think they're done with him. He's still in LA with the Rams right now. Like, these are the things that always happen. We hear about a guy disgruntled or a team wants to move on from a player, but that guy doesn't get moved at the trade deadline. This year was different because even though there were guys that didn't get moved that we thought there was a chance they could be moved, like Jerry Jeudy, we heard his name surface a bunch. I just mentioned Brandon Cooks was a guy that we thought could be moved, but he didn't get moved. Kareem Hunt is a name that we've heard come up over and over again. Even though those guys didn't get moved, right? There are a lot of names of players who did get moved, who we did hear about. And that's the thing that makes this trade deadline different. But I want to take it a step further. I'm take it a step further, because this entire, like I said, sometimes the league speaks universally on a topic or a subject matter, and you know how the entire league feels by how they react in unison as one. The entire league spoke on the quarterback position this past year's draft. Only one went in the first round. No other quarterbacks went until the third round. So the league spoke as to how they felt about that particular crop of quarterbacks. They were trash. That's what the league pretty much said. The league spoke again today, and I've been telling anybody that will listen that this is the most wide open the NFL has been since Tom Brady won his first Super Bowl with the New England Patriots. I'm not bullshitting you. We're talking over 2 decades. But for the most part, over the better part of the last 2 decades, there's always been at least one dominant team, the likes of which you knew there's no way in the hell you're beating them, they're beating them, or they're beating them. They're barring some kind of catastrophe or injury, they're going to the Super Bowl, or they're going to at least at a bare minimum end up in the championship game. And there's usually one of each on both sides of the bracket, right? When Brady was in New England, you could go ahead and pencil in the Patriots. He kind of passed that baton to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. and they've been running with it ever since. You could argue Mahomes and Allen are now fighting over that baton. Mahomes is pulling it, saying, no, it's mine. And Allen's like, yo, you've had enough. It's my turn now. And they're kind of jostling back and forth. It's a tug of war for the baton in the AFC, right? But those are the two best teams. It's not close, okay? But neither are dominant. Neither of them are dominant. Both can be beaten. The Bills look a little bit more dominant than the Chiefs, but they've still got flaws. We saw that on Sunday night. They were supposed to devour the Green Bay Packers, and they let that game be a lot closer than it needed to be, which shows that they still have some things to work on. Same thing in the NFC. All right. The Philadelphia Eagles, they're the class of the conference right now. The next closest team to them is the Minnesota Vikings. They beat them up pretty good on a Monday night in week 2. So they're feeling really good about themselves, but they're not dominant, are the Philadelphia Eagles. They're a damn good football team, but a lot of people feel like they can be beaten, right? That's why normally you have an undefeated team this late in the season. There's no doubt who is number one in your power rankings. That's not up for debate. And again, power rankings are subjective. So you can't go off of those. You can't just, that can't be the end all be all. But generally speaking, if we get 8-9 weeks into the season and somebody is the only team undefeated, they're number one in everybody's power ranking. That's not the case with the Eagles, because there are people out there that don't think they're the best team in football. And I totally understand that. And I would probably argue and say that I don't think they're better than the Bills either. That said, and it goes down to the quarterback, right? But that said, at the end of the day, what I'm trying to convey to you is the league has spoken. The madness that we saw, not only today, but, people, we're going to make a lot of what happened today. This started a while back. We've seen trades. The Chiefs went and acquired Kadarius Toney. The Eagles went out and got edge rusher Robert Quinn. Like, we've seen teams being active well before today, right? But today was the culmination of desperation. Like, okay, we legitimately have a shot. You're seeing 3 and 5 teams say, why not us? This shit is as wide open as it's ever been. Why not us? If somebody upsets the Philadelphia Eagles in the second round of the playoffs, that's assuming that the Eagles win the division. Like, while they're 7-0, they got 2 6-2 teams behind them. A couple of slip-ups, and they're right there in the mix for a wild card instead of winning the division. Like, it's crazy. But let's assume that the Eagles win the division and somebody takes them out. They have a bad game. Jalen Hurts, for whatever reason, doesn't play his best football, throws a couple of picks, has another fumble. The running game can't get established, and they lose a game that nobody saw coming. What's to stop a team like Atlanta, who got in as a 7-10, 8-9 division winner? What's stopping them from getting to the NFC Championship game? I know it sounds crazy, but that's the kind of season that we're in right now. There's no Brady. There's no Rodgers. I mean, there's a Mahomes. There's an Allen. But those guys and those teams, nobody's going to be 14. Nobody's going to be 14-3. No one's going to be 15-2 this year. There won't be any of those teams. The best that someone will end up this year, I really feel this way, is 13-4 when it's all said and done. The Eagles have the best chance, obviously, because they haven't lost. But they've got a lot of division games left. And look, their schedule is set up for them to not lose a bunch of games. But I think they're going to ultimately lose 4 games. We'll see. But to me, the league spoke today. The amount of trades that you saw reflect teams feeling like, not only do I have a chance this year, it's wide open this year, but I'm setting myself up for success into the future. Let's go over some of these moves. And again, I'm not going, you're here, if you're looking for compensation and you're looking for someone to talk about what was gained by making this move or that move, you're in the wrong spot. because I don't really give a shit about draft picks because we never know what is proper compensation for these players. We have this conversation all the time. There's nothing that we get more wrong than compensation for players. So I don't really want to belabor the point of talking about what someone got in return. All right. I just want to talk about the players that were traded, where they were traded to, and what that does for the team that acquired that player. So this is all of the action that we got today, which is just insane. Not to mention Christian McCaffrey got traded. We already talked about that, but Christian McCaffrey, we already see the impact that he's having. I told you guys last week on the podcast, I said, remember, he only had like 9 snaps or whatever it was against the Kansas City Chiefs. He had just gotten there like 3-4 days prior. And I said, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, Christian McCaffrey is going to have a massive impact on the San Francisco 49ers. You could see it very quickly. And you know why? Because Kyle Shanahan is an offensive genius. And you give him a player like Christian McCaffrey, and I really think he ended up in the right place. Had he gone to the Rams with McVay, I don't think they would have used him in the way that Shanahan's going to use him. I just think they're going to get the most out of him in San Francisco. I liken Kyle Shanahan to Sean Payton and to guys like that, where if you give them this type of player, they're going to maximize his skill set and get the most out of him. And so I just don't see how he doesn't have a massive impact as long as he stays healthy. But we saw that trade. I've referenced the Robert Quinn to the Eagles trade. It's almost as if it's an arms race. Eagles make a move, so the Bills feel like they have to make a move, right? Almost feels like those two teams are kind of competing with one another. And then the Chiefs quietly acquired Kadarius Toney, and we'll see how that works out for them. I didn't think they needed any more receiver help, but I think that move of acquiring Kadarius Toney is less of a this year move, more of a move for the future. That's a former first round pick that they have under contract for the next 3 seasons, if they so choose. And then, you add on this year. So next 3.5 seasons, if they decide to pick up his 5th year option, and they get to figure out, what this kid can or can't do. And if they don't like what they see, they don't have to pick up the 5th year option. But it's just their way of saying we're going to be okay at the receiver position. Remember, Juju Smith-Schuster, 1-year deal. So he may be gone after this season, right? So I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is the last year of Mecole Hardman's contract as well. So I think they're just setting themselves up so that they're in a comfortable position after the season and they don't feel the need to have to do anything drastic. Anyway, let's get to today's moves because, wow. I mean, I was blown away by the amount of deals. It's funny. Jerry Jones was running his mouth, as he always does, talking about the Cowboys, look like they're going to be very active players on trade deadline. They didn't do a damn thing. Shut up. But the rest of the league was very active. So I want to start with the Vikings trading for TJ Hockenson. First of all, what a disappointment that Irv Smith Jr. has been this year. 1, with injuries, and that's something you can't help. But 2, when he's been healthy, his performance hasn't been great. He had the big drop against the Eagles on that Monday night, would have been a touchdown. And so he's been a big disappointment this year. That said, you rarely see a trade like this go down within the division. I am actually shocked that the Lions pulled the trigger on trading a guy like Hockenson within the division. Now, I don't know if Hockenson, I don't believe he's gotten paid yet. I think that is on the horizon. I don't think they planned on paying him, and thus they needed to make a decision, and the decision was made, obviously, to trade him. But I'm shocked that they did it in the division. Now you've got to see this guy twice a year for the next however many years, and you've strengthened one of the opponents that you're looking to take down within your own division. I get it. Sometimes I've always said the draft makes, bedfellows out of strangers or sworn enemies, right? That's one thing that the draft can do. Draft compensation, you don't care who it comes from, you just want it. And you don't mind making deals with teams that you can't stand. But if you feel like you're getting the benefit of the deal, which is draft compensation, you'll do it. And I think that's why the Lions did what they did, knowing that they weren't going to retain TJ Hockenson's services. Let's not let him walk away and get a third-round compensatory pick somewhere. Let's get something for him, like some real tangible stuff that we can, grab onto. All right, I guess, but the Vikings are a huge winner here, right? That offense was already lethal. And Kirk Cousins has always been a big get the ball to my tight end type of guy, and he hasn't really had the benefit of doing that this season because of all of the guys that they lost this offseason. Remember, last year, they were throwing the football to the Central Michigan product that they had drafted like 2-3 years ago, and he had turned into a real stud for them. So the Jets pried him away from the Vikings in free agency last year. And they thought, well, don't worry about it. Irv Smith will be fine. We'll be all right. And he hasn't been what they thought he was going to be. And so they've been kind of in this, kind of malaise, if you will, at the tight end position. No longer the case now that they've gotten TJ Hockenson. He's had some monster games this season, has Hockenson. He'll upgrade this Vikings offense exponentially. And they may have the best skill position of any team in the league now when you add Hockenson to the mix. If they've got a healthy Adam Thielen and the emergence of KJ Osborne, now you add in Hockenson with a healthy backfield of Dalvin Cook and his backup, Alexander Madison. You'd be hard pressed to find a better group of skill position players on one team with the acquisition of TJ Hockenson. The Vikings have really strengthened their football team with that move. They're going for it, as are most teams on this list, which again speaks to the parity that exists in the NFL right now. Chase Claypool to the Bears. I didn't see this one coming. Now, not necessarily Chase Claypool being traded. I could see that happening. They haven't gotten from him what they thought they were going to get from him after his breakout, rookie season. His rookie season was fantastic. It was more than what the Steelers could even have imagined nor bargained for when they drafted him out of Notre Dame. And so they thought they were going to get a lot more of that and then some moving forward, and it just hasn't been the case. And I don't think they had had any intentions of paying him either. And thus they went ahead and moved him. I'm shocked at who they moved him to. The Chicago Bears. The Bears. Really shocked that the Bears were the ones that pulled the trigger here. But you know what this is for the Bears? And again, the Bears, they're not going to make the playoffs this year, okay? Because the Vikings have been so good this season. It's not like they play in the NFC South where you might win the division at 7-10, 8-9, and they could rate, at 3-5, which is where the Bears are, they would be right in the middle of that mess that is the NFC South. Instead, they're in a garbage division, but the team at the top isn't garbage in the 6-1 Minnesota Vikings. So that kind of kills your hopes and dreams of making the playoffs. That said, and even as I say that, the last wild card belongs to a 4-4 team. The Bears are 3-5. So they're not dead yet, right? But anyway, I think this is the Bears. I think recognizing, all right, we believe in I think they believe more in Justin Fields now than they did. Remember, this was a new regime. Ryan Poles, a brand new GM coming in. You had a brand new head coach in Matt Eberflus taking over. And so I do believe there was this filling out process where they wanted to see what Justin Fields was going to be. And I don't think that's the way to go about it, by essentially throwing him to the wolves without any help, just throwing him in the deep end of the water, knowing he can't swim and saying, hey, figure it out. Not necessarily the way I would go about it, but that's what they did. And they've taken what they have and they've made the most of it, turning themselves into the number one rush offense in football. But I think they've seen enough from Justin Fields to where they said, okay, we got to get this guy some help. This is ridiculous. I think they've acknowledged that. And this move is they're acknowledging we've got to get Justin some help. We should have did it in the offseason. We're going to do it now. Kudos to them. There's never a wrong time to do the right thing. All right. So they made a mistake. They're correcting that mistake. Good for them. Shocked that the Bears were the team, not shocked that Chase Claypool got traded. And this is going to give him a chance to see if he's really a number one type receiver. Not sure if that's really what he is in this league, but I'm not sure he's not capable of being that. We'll see. Even if he's not a number one, I still think that Darnell Mooney could, be a low end one, and that would allow Claypool to be a two. And that's probably more along the lines of what he is. But in Pittsburgh, he was more like a 3-4 type option. So this will probably give him a chance to spread his wings if he's capable of doing so. We'll see what he does. William Jackson III, traded from the Commanders to the Steelers. This was a mistake from the start for Washington. They went out and signed a pure cover man corner, a pure cover corner, right? Man to man. And put him in a zone, a primarily zone-based defense. That's not how that usually works. It's the same mistake they made ages ago when they brought in Josh Norman, a primarily zone cover corner, right? A zone corner, and asked him to play man coverage. You're asking for trouble. So that was a disaster from the start. The Steelers want to play more man-to-man coverage. They want to be more aggressive on defense. They haven't had the corners to be able to do so. William Jackson III gives them that ability if he's healthy. It's a good trade for both teams, honestly. Jackson needed a fresh start, needed to go to a scheme that fits his skill set better. Washington needed to get from under the contract and wipe their hands clean of a bad decision that they made. I think it's a win for all parties involved. The biggest trade of the day that I think takes a team that was on the fringe of, competing to potentially making some real noise if this guy can stay healthy and play the brand of football we know he's capable of playing. And that's Bradley Chubb to the Miami Dolphins. We heard his name circulating around league circles as a guy that could be traded. And we knew it was going to take a lot. You're going to have to give up a first-round pick, and the Dolphins did that. But the Dolphins are in a really unique spot. Again, I've talked about the parity that exists in the NFL and the wide openness that this season has presented to all 32 teams. And the Dolphins are in a really a weird spot because no one thinks they can win their division. Yet they're only a game and a half back of the Buffalo Bills. Bills are 6-1. Dolphins are 5-3, tied with the Jets for second place. But they've already beaten the Buffalo Bills once this season, have the Dolphins, right? So they have that feather in their cap, and they'll play them again. It'll be in Orchard Park. It'll be later on in the season in December when it's going to be cold and frigid. But we'll see what happens between those two teams leading up to that game and where their records reside. But there's no more explosive offense in the league right now than the Miami Dolphins. They've got the best tandem of receivers in the league from a statistic standpoint, from an explosiveness standpoint. Nobody's checking Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. It's damn near impossible. These guys are putting up 100+, it seems like, every week. They did it again. They did it again against the Lions this past weekend. And right now, the only thing stopping the Dolphins from being a serious contender is the ability to get pressure on the other team's quarterback. Because if they can continue to score the way that they've been scoring this season, putting up points with that explosive offense, and they get on top of teams, they're going to have the ability now to pin their ears back, get after quarterbacks. And if they've got a guy like Bradley Chubb to help them do that, it's the same thing I said about Buffalo with Von Miller. Like, Von Miller's the missing piece for the Buffalo Bills. He gives them the one thing that they lacked last year when they needed to get a stop against the Chiefs in 8 seconds or whatever it was. Von Miller is the guy that shuts that down. He's the guy that ends the game for you. He's what I like to call, and what a lot of people like to call, a closer. Now the Dolphins have one effectively in Bradley Chubb if he plays the way that we think he's capable of playing. So that's a big move for the Miami Dolphins. And what that says is, hey, we're going for it. Similar to what the Vikings said with the TJ Hockenson trade. We're going for it. All right. Teams are going for it. In that deal, Chase Edmonds goes to the Broncos in addition to some draft picks. That's an interesting move, but remember, the Broncos are hurting at the running back position. They lost their second-year running back, Javonte Williams, for the season. You really don't want to rely on Melvin Gordon III. He's got a fumbling issue. And so there's really no depth at that position. They went out and traded for they signed Latavius Murray off of the New Orleans Saints practice squad, and they activated him. So he's in Denver right now, and he's playing solid for them. But none of those guys have any real speed anymore. So Chase Edmonds gives them a little bit more oomph in that backfield. So that's a good move for them. And because they traded away Chase Edmonds, who was a speed guy for them, they needed to then reacquire some more speed in that backfield. And so they trade for Jeff Wilson from the San Francisco 49ers. And remember, Mike McDaniel came from San Francisco, so he's very comfortable with Jeff Wilson, knows what he's getting himself into, and knows, what Jeff Wilson's strengths and weaknesses are. And remember, because they traded for Christian McCaffrey, there's not a lot of room for Jeff Wilson to get, touches. And at some point, they're going to get their 5th-round pick or 6th-round pick from last year's draft, Elijah Mitchell, back. And so when he comes back, there's really no room for Jeff Wilson. So they went ahead and they were proactive and they moved him to the Dolphins. And again, I like what the Dolphins are doing. Get you a speed back in Jeff Wilson and get you Bradley Chubb. It's a good day, good day's work if you are the Miami Dolphins. This one was interesting move. I spoke to a Jaguars content creator, UCF Jaguar, earlier this season when Washington played the Jacksonville Jaguars. And one of the things he pointed out, and we've seen this play itself out throughout the season, and we knew this going into the year, but it's been, I think, highlighted even more so with the play of the team, is that they lacked a number one wide receiver. And I can't stress this enough. Having a number one wide receiver is not a must if you have other areas of your team that can pick up the slack, i.e. the Tennessee Titans. They don't have a number one wide receiver in sight. I mean, you got to go miles and miles on their roster to even find a number 2, and that's Robert Woods. But you got to go way down the list to find Robert Woods, right? Like, got to drive a little bit to get there. But they got Derrick Henry. That's their equalizer. That's the thing that balances it out for them. There's no such thing in Jacksonville. There's no one mechanism that's embedded in their roster that allows them to go without a number one receiver and still have their offense flourish. And so they went out and did a thing that a lot of people didn't see happening, and that's trade for Calvin Ridley, guy that's suspended for this year. And we don't know. We just assume that, he'll be back next year. The league could decide, no, we're not done with you yet, and you're going to miss the first 6 games of next season as well, because he's suspended indefinitely. It's not just a 1-year ban. So Raj gets to go in and decide when this man can come back. The likelihood is Raj will reinstate him over the summer, and he'll be allowed to, engage in training camp and all of that good jazz. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with this situation. But the Falcons were very disappointed in Calvin Ridley. They wanted out, and they got out, and the Jags were the suitor that made the most sense for them. And the Jags get what they need, a true number one wide receiver, or at least a guy that we think has that capability. He showed us that that last season of Julio Jones in Atlanta where he was hurt pretty much the entire year and Calvin Ridley was putting up big time numbers. He showed us that he could be that guy. Never really showed us that the next year because he got injured and then the whole gambling thing, happened and he left the team for personal reasons. We all know now why that happened. That's an interesting move for the Jags. If it works out, it'll properly slot all of their wide receivers and they could become a really dynamic offense. If it doesn't work out, they'll find themselves right back where they are right now without a number one receiver and dearly lacking one. We saw what a number one wide receiver can do for your offense. Look at the Bengals last night on Monday Night Football. Makes a difference. Jacob Martin goes to the Broncos. So they trade away Bradley Chubb and then they go and trade for Jacob Martin from the Jets. I love the move. He's an underrated, really sneaky good pass rusher. And so he's not Bradley Chubb, but he'll do just fine. And the Broncos is looking around and they're saying, hey, we're not dead yet. We're 3-5. It doesn't have to be over. It is if you continue to play the way that you're playing, but it doesn't have to be. We got Russell Wilson. We got talented football players. This thing doesn't have to be over. So they're not waving the white flag by trading for Jacob Martin. I like it. I don't love it. I like it. We'll see how it works out for him. Nyheim Hines, if you ask me what was the best move made, I think the most impactful move potentially is Bradley Chubb to the Dolphins. You ask me what is the best move that was made today, I think it's Nyheim Hines going to the Buffalo Bills. Wow, what a move. I mean, remember, they wanted J.D. McKissick in the offseason. Nyheim Hines is better than J.D. McKissick, by the way. They wanted J.D. McKissick. Washington was able to convince him to come back to the Commanders for the same amount of money. And they drafted James Cook, the brother of Dalvin Cook, and he was supposed to fill that void for them. And he's been coming on of late, but they still wanted a true receiving back out of the backfield and a dynamic threat out of that backfield. And they're getting it now in Nyheim Hines. This is amazing, honestly. Like, you thought the Bills couldn't get any better and more dangerous on offense, and then you enter in Nyheim Hines, who is, I would argue, the best pass-catching running back in the NFL right now. And there's some other guys that are up there. Aaron Jones is a really good pass-catching back out of the backfield. But Nyheim Hines, for my money, is the best pass-catching running back in the NFL right now. And they're going to add him to that already stacked Bills offense with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis and Dawson Knox. And now you're adding Nyheim Hines. They already got Motor Singletary in that backfield as well. There's just so many weapons, man. It's crazy. And they're still working in some of the young guys. I mean, this thing could get really ugly. The Bills are continuing to add pieces. Again, Rashad Fenton to the Falcons. Falcons are 4-4. They lead their division. All right. So what do you do at this point? You add a piece to the puzzle that you feel like helps you have a chance. And that's what they believe Rashad Fenton is. So I can't be mad at the Falcons for that. Maybe if they lose that game to Carolina yesterday, maybe they don't make this move. Who knows? And then the Bills also added Dean Marlowe. If I'm not mistaken, he was once a Buffalo Bill, so they may be familiar with him, but they bring him in as well. So this trade deadline was crazy, but wow. Now, I don't want to forget about some of the other trades. I see now that the Dolphins are expected to work out a new long-term deal with Bradley Chubb. Like I said, you trade for a guy and you spend the first-round pick. That's not a rental. You don't spend a first-round pick on a rental. I've never seen a team do that. So, let's see. I want to talk about some of those trades that were made previous to the trade deadline, and then we'll move on. So Eagles trade for Robert Quinn. Now, if they're getting the Robert Quinn from last year, remember, Robert Quinn is 87 years old. Understand that. If they're getting the Robert Quinn we saw last year, tear it up, then the Eagles got themselves a steal here for a 4th-round pick. That's a rental, right? That's a rental. If they're getting the Robert Quinn that I've seen this year, then the Eagles just got raped for a 4th-round pick. They got pillaged for a 4th-round pick because the Robert Quinn that I've seen this year, non-impactful. We played against the Bears. I've watched the Bears numerous times this season. I've watched every Bears game for that matter. But we've watched them on a Sunday night against the Packers. We watched them on a Monday night against the Patriots. We watched them against the Commanders on a Thursday night. I just watched them again against the Cowboys. Now, he wasn't on the roster against the Cowboys this past weekend, but I just gave you 4 games of which they were on primetime television with Robert Quinn in the lineup, and he did absolutely nothing. So, I look, he's had like 2 career resurgence. I don't know if there's a third. If there is, the Eagles absolutely got better defensively, because I've said this, and Eagles fans, again, hard of hearing. If you're a realist, the one issue that the Eagles have, because I'm hearing this too often, like the Eagles aren't a perfect team. They're flawed. They're not imperfect. Okay. Now they don't have many, but their biggest problem is they don't have a legitimate pass rush. Collectively, it's solid, but no one player stands out on that defensive line. And so if you can block it up, you've got a chance to attack them via the air. Now, that secondary is tough to navigate. You're going to have some dogs back there if you're really going to have some success. But I don't trust their defensive coordinator. This is why you have to go out and get him players, because I think he's very average. Like, people are building this dude up, Jonathan Gannon, like he's some kind of I think their offensive coordinator, Shane Steichen, he's doing a hell of a job. You want to talk about somebody doing a hell of a job? Shane Steichen is the answer to your questions. Not Jonathan Gannon. He's not doing anything other than taking good players and just letting them play. That is it. Nothing sophisticated about what he's doing. And so that's why I think teams feel like they like their opportunities going up against the Eagles. But you got to go out and execute, because those boys are executing. And if you don't execute, they're going to kick your ass. But I think you can block the Eagles up front. And I think you can run on the Eagles. I really, truly believe that. So Quinn may give them a boost. I'm going to tell you what this feels like. This feels like them adding Ryan Kerrigan last year. 0 impact on that team. They were all hyped up, thought they were adding a guy that was going to come in and make their defensive line the best in football. And then they realized, oh, he's done. You may be finding out the same thing with Robert Quinn. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Maybe he'll have that resurgence again. And if he does, it'll totally transform that Eagles defense from really good to dominant. And then all of a sudden, we're really having a real Super Bowl conversation with the Philadelphia Eagles. Chiefs and Kadarius Toney. I said this earlier. I'll repeat it once more and we'll move on. I don't think this is a move necessarily for this year. Now, they'll play him this year. They'll get him acclimated this year. But this is more of a move moving forward. Don't know what the status is for Mecole Hardman, but if I'm not mistaken, this is his final year of his rookie deal. He was not a first-round pick. There is no fifth-year option. So I think this is the last year of his deal. The Juju Smith-Schuster deal was only 1 year. So I could easily see him being gone after the season. So this is just putting a measure in place to keep you from being desperate next year, because while you'll have MVS, Marquez Valdez Scantling, and you'll have, Moore going into his second year at receiver. You just want to make sure you've got enough stuff for Patrick Mahomes. So that's what this Kadarius Toney move is all about. Feel like I'm forgetting a move. I thought there was like one more big move that was made. Yes. There you go. The Ravens trading for Roquan Smith. It's a great move for the Ravens. I still don't know. My biggest problem with the Ravens is pass rush. So this doesn't necessarily quell that, but it does give them a stud in the middle of their defense, somebody that can get the defense lined up, give him the green dot on his helmet, give him the responsibility of, setting the table for the entire defense. And we've seen Roquan Smith at his best be a blitzer and get to the quarterback. So that is something that he can bring to this Ravens defense if they want to be a little bit more aggressive. He's a guy that you can do that with because he has a knack for getting to the quarterback. That said, while it's a great move for the Ravens, and the Bears were definitely looking to get out of the Roquan Smith business, I just don't know how much better of a football team this makes the Baltimore Ravens. We'll see. We'll find out. I'm still kind of skeptical on this move as to the impact that it truly has on this Ravens football team. I think they would have been better off going out and getting a pass rusher than a linebacker, but we'll see. I could be sadly mistaken, and they could be perfectly fine with everything else, just needed an upgrade at linebacker. So we'll see what happens there. How about the teams that didn't make a move? If you're a Green Bay Packers fan, are you not sick of this shit? Are you not like over it by now with this franchise and this organization? Are you not at wit's end with them? Got to be frustrating. I mean, they dropped the ball in the offseason. They dropped the ball again in the draft. They had 2 first-round picks, didn't spend either on a wide receiver. They decided to wait until the second round. That guy has had the worst luck of any receiver taking, I shouldn't say that because we've seen guys get injured and have, their careers marred by injury. But he's had some really rough luck. It really hasn't been his fault. But, Christian Watson missed most of camp with an injury. He finally comes back week 1, drops the first pass of the season, would have been a touchdown, gets hurt in that game as well, misses like the next 3 or 4 games, comes back. In his first game back, he gets injured again, misses another 3 or 4 games, comes back, gets injured again, and I think he fumbled, if I'm not mistaken, got a concussion, left the football game. He's had terrible luck. But you could have had a first-round receiver. We shouldn't even be having a Christian Watson discussion. You could have had yourself a first-round receiver. You decided to do this, and so you've put yourself in this position. Rodgers is struggling. His offense is struggling. It's funny listening to the Packers now. They're bitching and complaining about their defensive play calling, and they're losing belief in what they're doing schematically. And all I can do is sit back and smile like a proud papa whose only son finally made it. I said, I told y'all bitches about Joe Barry. Somebody get me a cigar. Told y'all I asked about Joe Barry. Oh, they were giving Joe Barry all this goddamn praise that first year. And I said, I'm telling y'all, he stinks. They didn't want to listen. Don't worry. Wise woman once told me, those who don't hear, feel. They had to find out the hard way. Anyway, I'm just going to leave y'all with this statement. I've made this point. I've hammered it home. I'm going to hit it one more time, and then we're going to move on. The league is spoken. This shit is as wide open as it's been probably since 2008, and 2. Because the Patriots' reign of terror started really in 03. They won it in 01. They didn't win it in 02. And then they won it in 03, won it in 04. And from that point on, we knew, okay, these bastards ain't going away. This shit is wide open. Teams made moves today that reflect that. Some for the future, but most of these moves were made in an attempt to compete right now. You don't normally see 3 and 5 teams making trades at the deadline as buyers. 3 and 5 teams are sellers. Not when you're 1 game out of the wild card. Because if you get in, there's no telling what could happen. Normally, if you sneak in the back door as a wild card, you ain't expected to win the Super Bowl. You're not expecting much of anything. If you get in the playoffs, specifically in the NFC, I can't necessarily say that for the AFC because of the Chiefs and the Bills. Seems like it's inevitable that those 2 teams are going to meet in the AFC Championship game, barring any kind of catastrophes. Seems like that's going to be the AFC Championship game. Meanwhile, in the NFC, all bets are off. Styles make fights. It don't matter who shows up in the AFC trying to fight. I don't give a shit what kind of style you have. You ain't beating the Bills or the Chiefs more likely than not. NFC, styles make fights. You show up with a different type of style that they haven't seen or they're not ready for, you might get away with one. So you see teams like the Bears making moves. 3 and 5 team. Now, I'm not saying that they expect to do anything, but it's rare that you see that. You see a Vikings team saying, hey, why not us? 6 and 1, let's just go all in. See what the hell happens. I ain't mad at it. Dolphins 5 and 3 team saying, hey, shit, we right here. Why not? No time like the present. Let's make it happen. We've never seen an aggressive trade deadline like this, but I think it speaks to the state of the NFL right now. Anyway, I digress. Let's go Slate Skatin. I'm going to make this real quick. We're not going to go through all of these games in as explicit detail as we normally do. Because, 1, I don't have the time. And 2, I don't think it's necessary. But we will go through these games quickly. And I'll get y'all in and out on these games real quick. But it was beautiful because Washington played at 4:25. I was able to watch all the games at 1 o'clock and then all the games at 4:25 or 4:05. And so I was done with all the games already. Usually I got to go back and watch 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 games that I missed. I usually miss all the 4 o'clock games. Washington plays at 1. And then I'm usually live during all of the 4 o'clock games. Man, it was fun to be able to watch all those games. So we'll go through these quickly. We'll start with the Washington game. What a finish. This game was boring. If you weren't a Commanders or Colts fan, this game was absolutely a snooze fest for the first 2 hours and 45 minutes of this contest. But the final 15 minutes were worth every single minute of the 2 hours and 45 minutes you spent watching this scary. This was a Halloween spook fest, for 2 hours and 45 minutes. But you got your time back and then some if you were a Commanders fan in particular, the last 15 minutes with Washington scoring on their final 2 drives, including the very dramatic final drive with the Terry McLaurin, 33-yard catch or whatever it was down to the 1-yard line, setting up the game-tying quarterback sneak led to the extra point that was almost blocked for the win as Washington holds on 17-16. What a comeback win. Washington was previously 1-128 when trailing by 2 scores or more with 5 minutes or less in a ball game, which tells you that they don't do these types of things. But somehow they were trailing by 9, 16-7 with under 5 minutes to go in the game when they kicked that field goal to make it 16-10. They got a 3-and-out defensive stop, forced the Colts to punt the football, got it back, drove it down the field. And both of these drives started inside the Washington 10-yard line. So these weren't little cupcake drives either. These were some big time, drives when you had to have it. Washington got it done, and they win the football game 17-16. Washington's back at 500 on the season. Meanwhile, the Indianapolis Colts dip below 500 at 3-4-1. Broncos and Jags over in London. The Jaguars just invent new ways to lose football games. They've lost more games this season than the opponents have actually taken from them. They did it again to themselves in this game, losing 21-17. Trevor Lawrence threw a pick in the end zone. They were up, if I'm not mistaken, at the time of that pick, 10-0, and would have had an opportunity, or it might have been 7-0. And then he threw the pick. They ended up getting the ball back and then got a field goal. Either way, you can't throw that interception if you're Trevor Lawrence. He's made too many of these mistakes this year. That was a back-breaking play there. And then he throws a pick late after they took the lead. Look, as bad as he played at times, they took the lead late in this ball game with under 4 minutes to go. Like 3 minutes and some change left. They take the lead 17-14. And the defense gave it right up. I mean, the very first play offensively after the touchdown was scored, they give up one-on-one coverage to KJ Hamler on the outside. He cooks the corner, and Russell Wilson puts it right on the money, which is what we were expecting when they got Russell Wilson, like those kind of connections. And it put him right in field goal range. And the Broncos were like, to hell with field goal. Let's go get the touchdown. And the tight end, the rookie tight end out of UCLA, Dulcich, had a massive game. He gets a big catch down inside like the 5-yard line, and they're able, that's been a troublesome area for the Denver Broncos, but they were able to punch this one in. Latavius Murray gets in, and the very first play after the Broncos scored the touchdown, Trevor Lawrence throws his second interception of the game, and that was the final straw that broke their back in this game as the Broncos get a much-needed win. You could see the relief on their head coach's face after this one, 21-17. He's still garbage. He did a lot of funkiness in this game. From a game management standpoint, he's terrible, but they pulled it out. That's all that matters. They're now 3-5. Jacksonville now 2-6. What a crazy game this was. Panthers at Falcons. Another one of these games that coming into the week, and hell, looking at the schedule 3 weeks ago, you would have never thought this would have been a big game on the schedule, right? A 2-5 Carolina team against a 3-5 Atlanta Falcons team, or 3-4, Atlanta Falcons team. Who would have thought that this game would have been for first place in their division? But after the Bucs lost on Thursday night, that's exactly what it was. And had the Panthers won this game, they would have beaten all the teams in the division once already, and that would have been the source of their 3 wins. And by virtue of beating every single team in the division once, they would have been atop the division with the tiebreakers at 3-5. And every team in the division would have been 3-5, which is craziness. But as fate would have it, the Falcons, and this game was dramatic because it was a solid game. It was well played for the first 50 minutes, 55 minutes. The last 5 minutes of this game, total madness into overtime, total madness. So the Panthers put together a drive, cap it with a touchdown, take the lead. 28-24. Deontay Foreman 12-yard touchdown run with 3:06 to go. And I'm thinking, oh my God, Am I really going to lose this game? I'm not even thinking about it from a Falcons Panthers perspective. I'm thinking I picked Atlanta in this game. Am I really going to lose this game? Falcons waste no time. They hit former Panther Damiere Byrd on a 47-yard strike. He catches it, and he just runs by everybody. Smokes him. Scores a touchdown. But he did it so quickly, all right, that I'm thinking, man, they got a ton of time. It's 2 minutes left still in the game before the 2-minute warning. So they take the lead 31-28. All the Panthers need is a field goal to tie the game up. And I'm thinking they're going to get in the field goal range. With the way this game has been going, they're going to get in the field goal range. They don't. Falcons get a stop. Looks like the game's over. They're going to win this game. They kick a field goal with 36 seconds left, make it 34-28. It's all a formality now, right? Panthers don't have any more timeouts. There's no time left on the clock, really. Anything in bounds is going to really kill you. DJ Moore drops a pass on the previous possession, and you're thinking, damn, they had some opportunities. But, oh, well, they lost. And then PJ Walker, who's playing out of his mind right now. I don't know if you guys are paying attention to what this guy's doing in Carolina right now, but he's playing his ass off. Makes a ridiculous throw. I mean, it takes some elite level arm talent to do what he did on that particular play. I mean, his feet aren't completely set, and he launches this thing every bit of 65, 70 yards in the air to DJ Moore. Past two Falcon defenders, 62 yards into the end zone, touchdown. And I'm not even a Falcons or Panthers fan. I'm watching this game. I've got my hands on my head and I'm in disbelief. Once again, I'm saying, are you effing kidding me? I'm going to lose this game. And then DJ Moore loses his mind. And, you know, I'd like to see the officials have a little bit of leniency here when a guy makes a play like that. Let him lose his mind a little bit. Don't throw the flag. Go warn him, hey, put your lid back on, right? Because guys get excited. When you make a play like that, you get excited. Don't throw the flag. However, you know the rules. The rules are what they are. That's a flag. And I know I heard Terry McAuley come out and say that he didn't think it should have been called. I disagree. That's a flag. That's always been a flag. That's always been the way that they've enforced the rule. Look, they didn't lose this game because of DJ Moore. He only got them a 15-yard penalty. They lost this game because Eddie Pinheiro is their field goal kicker and his ass can't kick, which is why he's already been on like 5 NFL teams. They lost this game because they didn't have a real NFL kicker. Because 15 yards just makes it a 48-yard extra point. Make the kick. But, okay, fine. You missed that extra point. They give you a chip shot field goal in overtime for the win. Falcons win the toss. They fail to convert. Panthers get the football, drive it right down the field, get in chip shot field goal range, like a 33, 37-yard field goal. He misses. Don't talk to me about DJ Moore in this game. Okay? Save it. Eddie Pinheiro is the culprit here. He's to blame. Younghoe Koo comes in, calmly knocks down the kick from about 40 yards, and the Falcons somehow survive and advance to 4-4, the only team in that division with a 500 record. And who would have thought before this season started that the Atlanta Falcons, 9 weeks into the season, would be leading the NFC South? Unbelievable. Boy, this NFL season is just wacky. And listen to this. The Panthers at 2-6 are still right in the mix in the NFC South. Reminds me of the NFC East in 2020. Might be a little bit worse. We'll see. Bears, Cowboys. This was a fun game. 49-29 is the final score. I told my dad before this game, I said, boss, and he's been singing this song for the last 2 years. So it's not something new, or I'm not telling him something that he didn't already know. But I said, boss, you're about to get a taste of what it would be if y'all would just turn Tony Pollard loose and stop trying to force the two-man game and just let Dak or let Zeke be a backup. I'm not saying Zeke doesn't touch it. I'm just saying Tony should be your feature. And he said, you're right. And sure enough, Tony Pollard went bananas. I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm not. But to me, Tony Pollard is the best player on that Cowboys football team. And it's crazy because he doesn't seem like he's a blazer running wise. Like he's not a high speed guy. I think his 40 was like 4.5 at the combine. And he looks like a 4.5 sometimes. Like that last touchdown run he had, man, he looked like he was laboring, but he made it though. He made it. So, and you rarely see guys catch him from behind. You can say all that shit you want. Same thing with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry I don't think he's ever ran a 4.4 a day in his life. But that 4.5, go and try and catch him from behind. Good luck, you're going to need it. Still ain't met a dude that's done that yet in the NFL, by the way. So, I just know Tony Pollard's dynamic. He can catch it out of the backfield. If you want to put him on kickoffs, you can do that. You hand it to him, and you saw what they did. They handed it to him in this game, and he went off to the tune of 14 carries, 134 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And he had 1 catch for 16 yards. The dude is just a walking big play, ready to happen. The impressive part about this game is the Bears just hung around. You know, the final score may not indicate that, but at one point, the Bears cut this thing to 5 and went for 2 with a chance to cut it to 3 at 28-25. It was 28-23. Went for 2. They didn't get it. And that's where the Cowboys pretty much took off from there. Cowboys scored a touchdown. The Bears scored another touchdown. They went for 2 again. They didn't get it. And then the Cowboys just smoked them after that. But the Bears continue to be the best running team in football. Herbert, 16 for 99. Fields, 8 for 60. Montgomery, 15 for 53. That's another game where they've got 3 guys over 50 yards or more. Velus Jones added 2 carries for 33 yards. They rushed for 240 yards. I think it's like the 3rd or 4th game in a row they've rushed for over 230 yards as a team. They're ridiculous. They just need more targets for Fields to get the football to, hence the Chase Claypool trade. Big win for Dallas, though. They needed a get-right game because even last week's win against Detroit, Dak's first game back, wasn't all that impressive. Defense had to force 5 turnovers even to get them in the position that they ultimately ended up in. This week was more about the offense just destroying, because the defense really wasn't all that great. It's about the offense destroying that Bears defense, and it was pretty impressive to watch. Cowboys are now 6-2, and virtue win over the Giants earlier this season. They win that tiebreak, and they're now in second place behind the 7-0 Philadelphia Eagles. Dolphins and Lions. This was a fun game. It started out all Lions. This thing was 21-7 at one point. And again, I'm sitting there saying, you got to be effing kidding me. Am I going to lose this game? But no, the Dolphins are such an explosive team. I talked about this already, which is why adding a guy like Bradley Chubb makes them so much of a contender, because they can score with the best of them. And, you know, they started off slow in this game, had some mistakes, penalties, turnovers, things of that nature. But once they settled in, boy, did they settle in. And they rattled off touchdown after touchdown, it seemed like. And they chipped away. You know, it took them a while. They chipped away, but they finally took the lead. and they never relinquished it. This thing was 21-7, then it was 21-14, then it was 24-14, then it was 24-17, then it was 27-17. So you see, the Lions kept moving the goalposts back. Then they finally 27-24, and then 31-27. That was at the very end of the third quarter, and they held on to that lead and won the game by that final score. Tua just continues to really command that offense. And look, a lot of his throws are underthrown. We know he doesn't have the biggest arm in the world, and we can sit here and nitpick. But guess what? 29 of 36 for 382 and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. As long as he continues to navigate that offense, to get the ball where it needs to go. Tyreek Hill, 12 catches, 180 at 88 yards. Jalen Waddle in this game, 8 catches, 106 yards. You see what I'm talking about with those two? Waddle with 2 touchdown grabs in this game. As long as he continues to spread the ball to these playmakers, he's got nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. You can sit here and nitpick his arm strength, or, he didn't get that ball. Tyreek Hill will go up and get it. Don't worry. Just get it in the general vicinity. He'll get it. Tua, as long as Tua is at quarterback and he's healthy, this Dolphins team is dangerous. They're now 5-3 in second place behind the 6-1 Buffalo Bills. Lions drop to now a measly 1-6. And Dan Campbell, I don't think he's going to be fired. They just fired their defensive coordinator, Aubrey Pleasant, I believe his name was. But once you start doing that, you're heading down a slippery slope. He said, I know people don't want to hear close, and I'm tired of saying it, but we are close. Close gets you fired. The closer you are to being close is the closer you are to being out of the door. So you better start turning some of these close losses into close wins, or you're going to find yourself close to being a coordinator again, or a positional coach. Vikings, Cardinals. Another impressive win by the Minnesota Vikings. This was a scrappy win, 34-26 over the Arizona Cardinals. I really don't have much to say about this game other than the Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray was picked off twice, and Patrick Peterson, if I'm not mistaken, had one of them. No, he didn't. They celebrated in the end zone. You know how everybody runs to the camera and celebrates. He mocked Kyler Murray twice during the celebration. I just thought it was so petty on his part. I loved it. Remember, he's got a little bit of an axe to grind as Patrick Peterson. Didn't like the way his tenure in Arizona ended. And I don't think he loves Kyler Murray. I think he overlapped with Murray's rookie season. I don't think he really thinks very fondly of him. I don't think most people do of Kyler Murray. I think he's got a very eccentric personality. That's me trying to be nice. And so it was funny. So he first came over to the camera and he was playing video games, right? He put the headphones on and he was playing video games. And then he sat down and he did the yoga pose. We've seen Kyler Murray do that. Sit down in the end zone and do the Zen. I said, oh, man, there's a little bit of extra sauce there to that situation. But what this basically came down to was the Vikings' ability to, and I've told you guys this before, if you want to go and you want to determine how wins and losses are achieved in this league, really 2 stats will do it for you almost every time. Turnovers and red zone efficiency. The Vikings turned it over once. The Cardinals turned it over 3 times. The Cardinals were 2 of 3 in the red zone. Not bad. The Vikings were 5 of 5 in the red zone. God bless and good night. You're not beating anybody if you give up 5 of 5 in the red zone. If the Vikings had been held to 3 of 5 in the red zone, the Cardinals win this football game. If they're held to 4 of 5, it's a different outcome potentially. The score is drastically different, and maybe the game is played differently, and the Cardinals might be able to steal this game. But you give up all 5 of those red zone trips for touchdowns, you got no chance. That's what you got. And so the Vikings extend their win streak. Remember, they were 1-0, got shellacked by the Eagles, and they were 1-1. They've won 5 straight since then. They're now 6-1, have a commanding 3-game lead over the next closest competitor in the NFC North. Packers are 3-5. Bears are 3-5. So they're resting comfortably atop that division. And now it's all about seeding for them. You know, I can't see them blowing that lead in that division. None of those teams in that division are any good to catch them. They'd have to absolutely implode, coupled with somebody else actually getting hot. So them imploding wouldn't be enough by them, because the other teams stink in that division. They'd have to not only implode, but the other teams would have to be, you know, playing some of their best football. I don't see those two things happening in conjunction with one another. So they're going to win that division. Now it's about seeing, can we get to the Eagles? We got to finish a game better than them because they beat us head to head. Can we get the number 1 seed and make all roads to the Super Bowl come through Minnesota? We'll see. Cardinals are now 3-5 on the season. And, you know, DeAndre Hopkins had a sick one-handed touchdown grab in this game. He makes a huge difference for their offense, but something's off there. Cliff Kingsbury, Kyler Murray, something's just not right there. There's a lot going on with that team. Raiders Saints. This was the most surprising outcome of week number 8 for me. Not that the Saints beat the Raiders, the manner in which they beat them, blanking them. I just didn't see them shutting out the Raiders. The Raiders stink, man. They really, truly do. Derek Carr stinks, man. He really, truly does. They got some problems in Vegas. Man, it's rough. And I know that they've had issues with Derek Carr, and they've tried to get rid of him and trade him. And, you know, people have shooed them away. And, hey, you got a real quarterback. You should be grateful. Man, it's rough. Carr was horrible in this game. And he hasn't really been great this season, to be honest. They can't get the ball to Devontae Adams. I bet he's regretting leaving Green Bay. Grass isn't always greener. We say it all the time. He's finding that out firsthand. They are abysmal on offense. If Josh Jacobs doesn't get it going on the ground, they have no chance to win on a weekly basis. They were absolutely stymied by that Saints defense. Andy Dalton continues to play really well for them. He's really taken a stranglehold of that quarterback position. 22 of 30 for 229, 2 touchdowns. But this was the Alvin Kamara show. 18 carries, 62 yards, 1 touchdown there. 9 catches, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns there. So a grand total of 3 touchdowns for him. He was the star of the show. And they did this without in any of their wide receivers. You know, no Michael Thomas, no Jarvis Landry, and yet they get it done. 24-0. This was a surprise. After the game, Josh McDaniels said, pretty much said, we suck, and that's on me. Yeah, you're damn right it's on you. And yeah, you guys do suck. So I don't know where the Raiders go from here. I'm going to be honest with you. At 2-5, that's as bad as it gets to get shut out like that. So Patriots, Jets. I think the Patriots have beaten the Jets 13 times in a row. Not shocked. Every time they play, like when your coach tells you don't get sucked into the vortex, there's a mental block that you have when you play a certain team. And he was very specific in telling them, hey, don't get sucked into the Patriots vortex. You know, when we make a mistake, don't compound the mistake by making another mistake and continuing to, fall into the abyss. We got to find a way, if we make a mistake, to move on to the next play. And they couldn't do it. They fell into that vortex again. Zach Wilson threw 3 interceptions. They continued to really wet the bed in this game. The Patriots didn't do anything, really. All they did was they moved out of the way. And sometimes all you can do as a team, all you need to do is excuse yourself from the table and let the opposition vomit all over themselves. You don't need to do anything else. More games in this league are lost than they are won. And this was a prime example of that. The Patriots didn't do anything fancy. They didn't try to reinvent the wheel. They just let the Jets turn it over, and they just kept kicking field goals. They didn't even try to score touchdowns. We're just going to kick a bunch of field goals because we know you're not going to be able to do enough to beat us. Literally, the Jets turned it over, and the Patriots kicked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 field goals in this game. It's like, yo, you're going to keep turning it over. We'll just keep settling for field goals because at some point this lead is going to get too big. It's going to become insurmountable, and we're going to win this football game. And once it got to 22, I said, if it gets to 22, it's over. 22-10, it's over. Because it could get to 19-10, and you can get lucky, score a touchdown, and then have some craziness happen and kick a field goal and win 20. Because the Jets have had a crazy season like that. Remember the Browns game and how they came back and won that game? And so they've had some crazy finishes. So it's nothing for them to have some kind of a miracle finish. But if it gets to 22, you need 2 touchdowns. You're not doing that. So they weren't able to do it. And Patriots are 4-4. I don't know how they're 4-4. This is not a good football team. One thing I can say is that they're well coached as usual, and they're not going to beat themselves. That said, they're not supposed to be beating many teams because they're not very good. But they're 4-4. You know, I mean, they're 4-4. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to down talk them. They're 4-4. I'm going to leave it at that. Steelers at the Eagles. This game went exactly the way that I thought it did, was going to go. I will say this. They hung tough. Did the Steelers. And this game was 21-10. And the Steelers had every opportunity to make this a competitive game, and they just couldn't get out of their own way. And so even at 28-13, they were hanging tough. And again, they just couldn't make enough plays. This is less about the Steelers, though. Forget about them. This is all about the Eagles. Jalen Hurts. Oh, my God, was he so good in this game. His second touchdown throw, he had 3 of them to A.J. Brown. The second one of these throws, oh, my God, he couldn't have ran up and handed it to him any better. Wow. It was one of those games where I literally said, shit, he got better. Like, what else are we to do? He got better. The one fear that I had about this Eagles team, because the roster is so good, was if Jalen Hurts improves, they're going to be a nightmare to deal with. And I kept holding on to this hope that, you know, I've said this already. I'm going to say it again. The biggest offseason trade is not even close. A.J. Brown to the Eagles. It changed their offense dynamically and drastically. A lot of his balls that he's throwing up, these are 50-50 balls. That A.J. Brown is going up and making 70-30 balls, 80-20 balls. So there's a trust, a comfort level with him throwing the ball to A.J. Brown, and A.J. Brown is making them right almost every time. And I think he lacks that kind of continuity, synchronicity with any other receiver. Trust isn't necessarily there with any other receiver. And Hurts was spectacular. It's games like this that are going to keep him alive in the MVP race. And remember, the MVP usually goes to the best player on the best team. Unless a guy helps his team make it to the playoffs and he just had a ridiculous season. Usually the MVP, like Jalen Hurts, is in the midst of a Cam Newton type season on a Cam Newton type team. So understand where I'm going with this. The one thing he didn't have in his portfolio was passing touchdowns. Every time they would show his statistics, they would put combined touchdowns. It's cool to tell me how many combined touchdowns he has because he's a runner as well. But I still want to know individually, how many passing touchdowns does he have? And if he's got a lot of them, they'll show you that. But if he doesn't, to mask the fact that he doesn't, they'll just combine the two and say, hey, he's got 9 total touchdowns on the season. Okay, 6 of them are rushing, though. You failed to tell me he only had 3 passing touchdowns. And I just threw that number out there. I don't know if that's facts, but he had 4 in this game alone. So whatever he was at, that number has jumped incrementally. Now he's in that MVP conversation. He's in that conversation. And with the season that they're turning in, if it continues, you can't keep him out of that conversation. Not if he keeps playing like this. He had an extraordinary game. Extraordinary. And again, a lot of credit needs to be given to Shane Steichen, their offensive coordinator. What he's doing, what I'm watching him do, remarkable. Some of these play calls, I'm going, that shit was beautiful. Beautiful. They had a 4th down in this game. And they ran a play, and I can't remember exactly how it went, but I think it ended up in the hands of Dallas Goedert, wide open. I'm like, how are you supposed to stop that? How are you supposed to stop that? Like, they leave no stone unturned in Philadelphia on the offensive side of the football. They're a well-oiled machine over there. Damn, this shit was impressive. They're 7-0. The Steelers, they just got to take their lumps with Kenny Pickett. He's a walking turnover right now. If he's not throwing a pick, he's fumbling the football. Threw an interception. I think he fumbled another, 2 times in this game. Lost one of them. You're just going to have to take your lumps with this kid to find out if he's any good. 35-13 is the outcome there. Eagles are 7-0. Steelers are 2-5. Tennessee Titans, Houston Texans. This game, I don't have a lot to say about this game. Derrick Henry has rushed for over 200 yards in like 3 or 4 straight games against the Texans. I did not know that. Had I known that, I wouldn't have even made the dumb decision of picking the Texans. All I knew was that there was a chance that Tannehill couldn't play. He ultimately didn't play, and I like that opportunity. The Titans stink on offense, and I figured if you could just stop Derrick Henry, you're going to have a chance to beat them with a rookie at quarterback. What the hell was I thinking? That the Texans would stop Derrick Henry, who's rushed for over 200 yards on them 3 straight games, now make it 4 straight games in a row. If I would have known that, never would have done it. They can't stop Derrick Henry. They shiver, quiver, and piss down their leg when they see him coming. They did it again in this game. They lose 17-10. Titans are running away with that division. They're now 5-2. The Colts are the closest to them at 3-4-1. And I can't see anybody taking that division from them. 49ers, Rams. This game was a competitive game for 3 quarters, and then the 49ers really ran away and hid. This thing was 17-14 after 3. But what ultimately happened was once the 49ers got even, they were leaving. And they scored in this game 24 unanswered points. The Rams led this game 14-7, and then they didn't score another point after a touchdown in the second quarter by Cooper Kupp. And this was the Christian McCaffrey show. I told you guys last week, even though it was a small sample size, says he's going to have a massive impact on this 49ers roster because of Kyle Shanahan, his creativeness, and what he'll be able to do with Christian McCaffrey. You saw it in this game. He had a rushing touchdown, a receiving touchdown, and a passing touchdown. Jimmy Garoppolo, very efficient, 21 of 25 for 235, 2 touchdowns. That's the kind of Jimmy G they need. Don't need him to be super, they don't need him to be a guy that has to carry the load. They just need him to be a passenger, a distributor. There was no Deebo Samuel. I know that might have scared some of you off. Christian McCaffrey, more than capable of picking up the load. He did that. Brandon Ayuk is coming on. In case you guys weren't aware, 6 catches, 81 yards, a touchdown. They're going to be a different team with Christian McCaffrey. I'll just say that. You get Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, and George Kittle all healthy at the same time with a sprinkle of Brandon Ayuk, and you've got the makings of a really dangerous offense in San Francisco. And that defense has always been good. If they can remain good, look out for the San Francisco 49ers as a major player in the NFC. Again, Giants at the Seahawks. Geno Smith, he did it again. 27-13 over the Giants. The Giants' magic finally ran out in Seattle. Although they had their opportunities, Lockett was definitely seemed like a double agent in this game. Tyler Lockett had a big fumble that set up the Giants' only touchdown of the game. He had a drop that would have been a touchdown, and then he had redemption as he caught the touchdown that was the go-ahead score, ultimately the game-winning score. So big game for the Seahawks. A lot of people didn't think they were serious. You can't ignore them now. They're 5-3. They're playing great football. They're running the football. You got their rookie running back, Kenneth Walker, with a big run at the end of the game. They really held him down, 18 carries, 51 yards, but he had a nice 16-yard run at the end of the game for a touchdown to really salt this thing away as the Giants get the win, or the Giants get their first loss. I think they had won 4 in a row after losing to Dallas. So, that's going to cool their jets a bit. That's going to cool their jets a bit, but I can tell you this much. Don't sleep on the Giants. They're not going to go away. They're not a bad football team. I don't know what some of you think about the Giants. They're not a complete football team either, but they're not a bad football team. So I think that win is more indicative of the Seahawks and how good they are than how bad the Giants are. So that's your slate, your Sunday slate of games. Let's get to the final segment of the show. Garbage time. I'm going to get to your super chats with this garbage time segment. Nick Caps, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, trying to let you know that I really like your line of work. You're 96% serious and to the point with a sprinkle of laughter. Others are getting annoying. Well, I think there's a fine balance to that. Like, you need to be serious enough so that people understand that, it's serious work here being done, right? Sometimes people, in an attempt to make you laugh, they press, they do too much, they try too hard. I try to keep it simple, but at the end of the day, I don't want people looking at me and recognizing me for what I do because of one thing, and that one thing being making you laugh. Because now, are you actually laughing with me or are you laughing at me? And are you here because I'm funny, or are you here because I'm making good content? And it's a fine line that you have to be able to tote. And it's taken some time, right? And I could get into that at a later date and time, but it's taken time. But over time, I've found that balance, So anyway, thank you for that super chat, Nick Caps. Greatly appreciate you. Take Command for Life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, rest in peace, Mama Rivera. Yeah, I talked about that on the show, the Commanders Nightly News show today. Rest in peace, Dolores Rivera. I talked about that on the show. I'm going to leave it at that. You check out the show tonight, and you'll see what I had to say about that. Got another super chat. This one is from Metaphor. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Metaphor. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, pour out some gas from the whip for Mama. Yep. Again, Mama Rivera passing on. Miss Perry, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Miss Perry writes, early super. All right, so I'm going to check and see. I don't think I missed any supers today. Normally, I don't have the issue with podcast episodes, but I don't doubt. I just go to when you tell me to go check, I'm going to just go check. So, yeah. I didn't miss any early supers. That one was the earliest, and I got to it because I remember the 2 comments that were there before the show started, and it was right underneath that. So thanks for that, Miss Perry, as always. Greatly appreciate you. Miss Perry also says, it's whoa. with OA. So like I said, we all come up from that era of Black Rob and Woe being WHOA. And so that's how I've always spelt it. But again, when you look at phonetically the word woe, I think it's probably best spelled like that, right? So that makes sense. But I don't know. That word looks weird spelt that way. I struggle with that. But in any event, I digress. The Black Al B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Black Al B writes, yo, Lou, hope you're feeling better, pimp. I'm feeling a lot better, man. I mean, night and day difference than I was feeling yesterday. What's your projections for our squad's matchup on Sunday, my guy? Hashtag Skull. You know I ain't giving that out on a Wednesday. Check back with me on Friday. I have everything you want and you're looking for. But it'll be a fun game. I know that for sure. And a little bit has been added to that game in the way of inspiration. So should be a fun contest. It's a blackout game, the first ever in Commanders history. So the stadium will be filled with black. It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be a fun one. Kirk's coming back to Washington for the first time. Should be fun. K80 Tick, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBBSQUAD, who writes, hope you and yours are well, my brother. We getting there, man. One day at a time. It says, prayers up for the Rivera and Zimmer family. Tell your loved ones you love them and don't let arguments be your last words. There's no tomorrow, only now. Great statement, great sentiment. I echo those sentiments. I tell you guys that, something to that effect all the time. A great example of that, you talked about Zimmer's son passing away. Don't know the the reasoning behind that. He was 38 years old, so way too young. We talked about Dolores Rivera, the mother of Ron Rivera. Now she's lived an entire life, but then you've got Takeoff of the group Migos passing away at the age of 28. And they, he wasn't on speaking terms with Offset. It was him and Quavo, rolling and doing their, duo thing. And you hate to see it, just make sure that you show love to those who you value in your life, and don't let petty arguments be a reason that you don't speak, because you just don't know. I remember this is something that always stuck with me. I remember Dame Dash talking about, or it was Timbaland actually talking about the last conversation he had with Aaliyah. And it was, prior to her getting on that plane, they argued, they were upset at each other. And, temporarily they weren't speaking. It wasn't like they hadn't spoken in months, but, they weren't speaking and they were hot at each other. She gets on a plane that she probably shouldn't have gotten on. It was way overloaded. And obviously we know the outcome of that. And he said the thing that he kept beating himself up over was the last time they spoke, they argued. And he loved her to death. And it's just little stuff like that, Don't let something small come between you and someone you love, because you don't know the next time, if there'll be a next time. I'll just say it that way. Thank you for that super chat, K80 Tick. Victor Adams, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Writes, we should have tried for D-Hop. Who is we? I wonder what team you're referring to. And I can tell you what happens. He's hurt right now. And I'll say this. That sounded real luckish, but I'll go along with it. I'm not tripping. But you say we, You left it really open, so it sounds like I'm going to go, who's we? I just said that. So I need to come back and correct myself before you, oh, D's nuts. I'm assuming that's what that was. Had to be, because no one's trading for a kicker. Teams don't do that. So, and he's hurt anyway. We watched him get hurt on a Monday night. Was it a Monday night or was it a Thursday night? I think it was a Monday night. So has to be luck trying to sneak in and get a D's nuts. I'm going to assume that's what that is. We'll see. I could be wrong. It just could be a first-time super chatter just being really vague. Highly doubt that. All right. Thank you for that super chat, Victor Adams. Greatly appreciate you. Jerry Jones. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I like to hide Mike McCarthy biscuits. Okay. Thank you for that. Let's see. See if we got any more supers. Andrew Underwood, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, rest in peace, Takeoff. I just spoke to that. It's crazy, man. It's crazy how these things can happen. I'm more upset about how it transpired. I don't know all the facts. I hate speaking on situations when the facts are coming out, because everybody wants to be the first with the information, and a lot of times they get the shit wrong. So I try not to be overreactive to what I hear initially, because initially we heard, Quavo was hit as well. Then I've heard he was unharmed. At the end of the day, I did hear that this was over a dice game. If that's true, come on, bro. You make too much money to be in dice games. And I don't care if it's people you get down with, you rock with. Dice games always have a chance to get out of control. Always. I'm so frustrated with some guys that can't let the hood part of them go. You don't need that shit, man. There got to be other ways that you can recreationally have fun and enjoy yourself. Reportedly, they were at a bowling alley. Go bowl then. Go in and throw some strikes. Knock down some pins, man. So disgusted with that whole situation. Again, I don't have all the answers, but it's just crazy, man. Let's see. I see y'all. I see y'all was laughing at my Joe Barry take. Hey, I tried to warn them, man. They was having way too much fun with Joe B last year. All right, I loved it. Or was it 2 years ago when he first got to Green Bay? Whenever it was, they was too hype on Joe B. Like he was the next best thing since sliced bread. Joe Rockhead J, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, check your IG, winners and losers, and it's whoa with, I've never seen it spelled that way. I've never seen it spelled that way. That's different. I will check you said check my IG DM. I will check it now. So if I don't understand what I'm looking at, you can explain to me what I'm supposed to be checking for. Excuse me. This is from Joe Rockhead J. Let's see. All right. That's not it. All right. So I don't actually. Oh, here it is. Okay. All right. I see it. I'll message you back later on that. Victor Adams. Yeah, I got it. I knew it. I knew it. I said that was so vague that a lesser guy would have got. A lesser content creator, they got there. I'm a veteran in the game, man. You done got me too many times. You won't get me again. 3 times is enough. I know you'll probably lay claim to getting me 5 or 6 times, which is probably true. I'm only taking the brunt of 3. But you won't get me anymore. Good try. But your man is up here, man. You out here playing checkers. I'm over here playing chess. Almost doesn't count. Almost doesn't count. Good try. Good try, Victor Adams. That felt good. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Lou, Luck got 300 burners. Watch out. Bro, I done already seen over 300 burner accounts. You ain't got to tell me nothing. I already know, okay? I already know. Craig Smith, the flight deck. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. I got Craig writes, already left a couple of comments. This is just some appreciation for the brand. Hashtag salute from Petty P. Hey, I love it, man. If y'all haven't already done so, go check my man Craig's channel out. And he does a lot of work. He's a contributor on a number of different channels. Let me give y'all a little bit of information on my guy Craig. If you are interested in some Chargers content, I love watching other teams, content creators, because it helps me, freshen up on what I need for other teams, because it's hard to keep abreast of what everybody's teams are doing, especially when you pay as a close attention as I do to my team. It's hard to, pay attention to what everybody. So it's always good to be able to get a little bit from some of these other content creators. And he does a hell of a job covering the Los Angeles Chargers, which is part of the reason why I think so many people want a piece of him and have him contributing on their channel. All right. Jesus, my YouTube timeline is just filled. All right. That's not going to be helpful at all. So I have to go about it this way. He was a contributor on the Lightning Round podcast. And he does a segment for their show, their channel called I Got 5 on it. Then he has his channel, and it's by the same name. I thought he actually had a different name, but it's still the flight deck, Craig Smith. So that same name you see, you can go there and sub him up. And he does a weekly Chargers video there called Charge It to the Game. Love it. Appreciate the support, Craig, man. We've been chopping it up for a minute, bro. So it's always good to see. Like I said, I didn't know you had a channel. You were holding out on me, but it's so good to hear from you and to see the work you over there doing, man. It's good stuff. Take command for life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? Hit that like button for Lou on the way out. Y'all heard the man. Hit the like button. It don't cost you anything. Appreciate you. Take Command for Life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Take Command for Life writes, do you think Carson starts again? Do you think Carson starts again if DE? I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. But I can tell you this. If we beat Minnesota, I don't know what happens against Philadelphia, but if we beat Minnesota, I don't know how you bench Taylor Heineke. I'll just say that. I've been on record as saying he needed to win all 4 games in order to keep Carson Wentz from getting his job back, because I really, truly think they want to prove that they made the right decision on Carson. I don't think they're willing to admit they made a mistake and bite the bullet, eat the $28 million and the draft capital that they've given up and just say, you know what, we made a mistake and move on. I think they want to force it down our throats. Hey, we made the right decision. Only way you're going to be able to prove that is if he plays. If you don't put him back in the game, you have admitted you made a mistake. And you can't proceed with that mistake moving forward because you don't want to continue to pay for that mistake in terms of financial dollars, because there's no penalty for getting out of the Carson Wentz deal after this season. Financially, you can break free without any penalty. So if you don't put him back in after his injury, you're admitting he's not the best quarterback for this team, which means why the hell do we even have him? I don't think they want to do that. I don't think they want to admit that. Yeah. Metaphor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat. Writes, thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, post-Wentz layout of Roquan, Bears lost first round pick. I don't even know what that means. Oh, good try. Again, that was garbage because you didn't even finish the sentence. And I said to myself, he's probably trying to get me here, but that wouldn't even come close. That didn't even come close. Good try, though. I didn't know what you were trying to say, Metaphor. I'm lost on that one. Metaphor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, double up, Number 4 wins big. He starts. Wins like last 2 weeks? Nah. I don't think it matters at this point, man. Honestly, as long as they win football games, I don't know if they care how it comes. They just need to get them. You know, after starting the season off 1-4 and having opportunities to win every one of those games except the Philadelphia game, they were in every one of those games. The Detroit game, after a slow start, you just needed some stops by the defense. We never got them. You were in that Dallas game with the chance in the fourth quarter down by 1 score. That game was 15-10 in the fourth quarter. Couldn't do what you needed to do in that game. And then the Tennessee game, having it there right in front of you and not getting it. They just want to win these games. So I don't think they care about impressive or, not impressive. I think they're going to really kind of analyze this situation. If they win against Minnesota, I think it's going to be really tough, man, to get him out of there. I really, truly do. But we'll see. Suds 21. Thank you for the super chat. Or stand up, Suds 21. You are now the newest member, officially the newest member of the MOBB. Mob, y'all know what to do. Show Suds 21 some love. Greatly appreciate you. Come on in. Suds 21, you couldn't have come at a better time. The wave is high. The water's nice and warm. It's the best time to get in, bro. We about to ride the hell out of this wave for as long as we can, for as far as we can, And I want you to be along for the journey. So welcome aboard. Welcome to the squad. Glad to have you. Metaphor. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, remember B-Rob ran that 11 smash. Oh, okay. I got you. They were going to trade him anyway. You know, they were always looking to move Roquan. Remember, he requested a trade in the offseason. It wasn't a good time. You know, nobody was looking to trade for him at that, current juncture. So they had to hold on to him until it made sense. They got, some compensation for him. And everybody gets what they wanted. Roquan wanted a new start, someone that he felt like would appreciate his talents and pay him as such. And the Bears got compensation for him. So Jerry Jones, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Says, sorry, Louie, that counts. You got. First of all, this is one of your 600 accounts that you have, burner accounts. So no, it does not count. All right. That was weak. Or as we like to say around these parts, that shit was weak. You got to come stronger than that. Take command for life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Writes, in all seriousness, hope all is well with the Twins. We get there, man. One day at a time. It's all of us. I'm feeling better. Wife ain't quite there yet. Son not quite there yet. So it's a process. But as a wise man once told me, but I ain't got nothing but time. So I'm going to wait it out as long as I have to, but as long as I can continue to grind, we're going to get it done. So anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 298th installment of the LouieTeeNetwork podcast. Wow, what a trade deadline. I think it really caps what has been a crazy NFL calendar year with all the moves made in the offseason. It kind of fits in line with the craziness that we've seen from the league this year and the parity, and then boom, this trade deadline. It kind of all, I think, seamlessly flows together. So it's come and gone, has the trade deadline. Some teams are active, others were not. Now we play football. Let's see what happens. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys later on in the week. I'm so glad my team was able to get off the cargo that they had to ship off. So if your team had some shit you were looking to get rid of and you got rid of it today, stand up, pat yourself on the back. If you were looking to acquire something at the deadline and you were able to do so, stand up, pat yourself on the back. If your team needed to do something and you did nothing, sit down and do it on your hands. Anyway, I digress. You guys, have a good one. Take care. Y'all know the routine. Get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man Louie T. Until next time, y'all take it easy. And of course, God bless and good night.